Hey everybody. So we keep getting a lot of questions. Show me more about the selenite. Let's hear about the knives. How do the wands work? What have you got in stock? And what is a selenite window? So I'm going to try and answer a few of these questions today, just in a few minutes, and give you a little brief rundown. For those of you that have played with selenite, you know that it's an amazing tool, and you really need to have it in any of your healing crystal toolboxes. And I consider selenite and tourmaline the salt and pepper in your kitchen spice rack. In other words, you just got to have a lot of it all the time, because you're going to use it in just about everything you're going to be doing with crystal healing, either on yourself or on other people, or just keeping the energies in your space nice and clean and fresh and clear, and just finding a little extra coping tool these days, because it's getting a little crazy out there. So selenite is a gypsum, and it can occur in different forms. The most popular form, because it is the one that can be shaped, is going to be your satin spar. And so we have some different examples of satin spar that my team has pulled for me today. So satin spar selenite is very distinct. You can see the fibers that it grows in. It can be a little chippy and a little shreddy, and that's fine. And that's totally natural and normal. It doesn't mean you got a bad piece or a defective piece of selenite. That's just the way it occurs in nature. So it has like a natural fiber optic property, and so you'll see that nice glow when you have a selenite lamp lit up, or if you're having a light source behind your selenite, it just makes it look very moon-like. That's where we get the name selenite from, the Selena, the goddess of the moon. So when you're using satin spar, you'll often have little bits come off in your hands, and you can see like these little bits of little shreds of the fiber optic type particles there, the fibers in that. That's perfectly fine, because you're going to use it up, energetically speaking, physically speaking. So when you handle it and a little comes off, that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. Eventually it will all just crumble away to dust, especially if you're using it a lot. It may break. That's okay, because what's happening, the energy that you're transmitting through the fibrous material, it'll start to blow off the little extra bits. That's one of the ways you know it's working. And just like a lot of sacred items or spiritual items or energetic items, you'll see that they break or damage or chip or crack apart when they have done a big job for you. So, somebody's holding a piece of amethyst and it cracks in their hand. Well, it just did something. It just absorbed a big amount of energy, and it literally split the stone. And it happens. And that's okay. That means it's doing its job. So when you're starting out with satin spar selenite, expect it to crack, expect it to chip, expect it to eventually wear down, because that shows that it's doing its job. One of the things that happens when you're using satin spar style selenite especially is the energy is going to be transmitted along those fibers, just like light is transmitted along a fiber optic cable. So when you're holding it, and this is a neat thing I like to do when we go to work events and I'm working one of the metaphysical fairs or a gem and mineral show, and I'm introducing selenite to someone who hasn't worked with it before, is I just say, hold it in your hands, hold it in both hands like that. Count to 10. They count to 10, and it's like, oh my God, I feel a tingle, I feel a tingle. Well, what you're doing is you're completing a circuit. And so now it's like a big electrical loop. And that energy is flowing from you into the selenite, out the other way. And as it's going through the selenite, the energy is being reset and reformed. And the unhealthy energy is being pulled into the selenite, and the selenite diffuses it into the atmosphere, where the Earth's natural energy field absorbs it and resets it. And that's exactly what you want. So a lot of people will feel that energetic buzz, like, wow, I feel like it's plugged in or something. That's great. You're going to feel that. So that's with the satin spar. So when you see it nice and rough, we call this a rough, chunky piece. This can be more easily shaped into different little accoutrements. Some of the knives, which are really great for doing energy work, your eggs, your little candle holders, all that can be shaped from satin spar, but it's really difficult to do that from the other form of gypsum, which is a selenite window. This is a selenite window, and this grows in laminated plates. So where this is little fibers that are all squinched up together, this is layers that are all squinched up together. So if you think of like mica, how mica occurs in nature, and it's all these super laminated flakes. Lepidolite sometimes will appear like that also. Excuse me. And sometimes certain graphites. So it's another kind of natural formation. This is from Morocco. This is from Morocco. Sometimes you'll see these windows coming from Mexico. There's some really great ones in Mexico. But you can't carve this and shape it. You can have it as a window, a small one or a big one. And again, it's going to transmit that energy just like the satin spar does. But you can't get it in the neat shapes because it will just continue to chip and flake. When we get these in, and we get these in raw, and we process them here at Nature's Treasures, and we actually soak these in a tub of moving water. And you know, so it's like constantly flowing water, and we'll just soak it in there for 3 or 4 days. There's little bits of grit and little bits of sand and whatever matrix it was growing in, which is usually going to be kind of a sandy environment anyway. And as that water flows over it, it kind of smooths away some of the little baby chips, and it leaves it looking a little bit more clear. And when we get it the way we want it, then it comes out and we air dry it. If you put these in water, they too will dissolve, sometimes faster than you think. I'm not saying it's going to like melt 5 minutes after you put it in there, but it will slowly start to dissolve. And that's kind of a neat thing to do if you have a broken piece of selenite. I never have anybody throw out any broken selenite. Save your broken selenite just like you save your broken tourmaline, because those little chips and bits work great for when you're gritting. They work great to go in the corners of your jewelry box, in your little jewelry bags. Sprinkle it around the door of your house on the outside. Sprinkle it in your flower pots. But you can also take, say you had a broken angel. Don't toss your broken angel. Put him outside and let him get rained on, and he'll get a little melty, and wherever his broken piece is, it'll get smooth again over time. So that's just kind of a neat thing to do. I never throw out little bits of broken jewelry or little bits of broken stones. They're always good for something. And I do a lot of gritting at the house. So I may take those little broken bits and make a little design. I'm always doing something little arts and craftsy, and little bits of chuff, little bits of confetti. People are making their own crystal confetti these days with those little broken bits. So that's a basic introduction to selenite forms of gypsum. There's another one that is the selenite rose, the desert rose, that I don't have on the table right now. And it's sort of a combination. It's more like a satin spar than what I would consider a window. It usually grows in a laminated rose shape. Oh, thank you, Katie G. So that is a desert rose, which is a form of gypsum / selenite. And what this is this is where the melted gypsum in the environment, in the sandy environment, recrystallizes, like with the dew falling at night, and it can soften and liquefy whatever selenite or gypsum is in the sand, and then it just kind of starts to come together again and recrystallize in this form. And sometimes the forms will be very different and very distinct depending on what kind of environment it's growing in. So if you have it growing in the Sahara Desert versus as the Gobi Desert, and they do happen a lot in deserts. So just a little FYI, as you're kicking along in the desert sands, keep your eyes out for little selenite roses. You might get lucky. So let's talk about some different ways to use our selenite. The wands I really like for doing energy clearing, energy work. whether I'm rebalancing a chakras or clearing out some blockages in myself or in someone else. Oh, Lakshmi's blowing in the wind. The AC just clicked on. This is the goddess Lakshmi. She's blessing us today with prosperity and abundance, and we're very grateful. So when we're doing energy clearing and chakra balancing, when we have an area in our home or our workspace where it's just a little stale energy and we want to clear and freshen that using our selenite, you can wave it in that dull or stuck area just to kind of clear that energy. And I always like to swish it, and the swish and flick, like we learned on our Harry Potter, we want to do the swish and flick, because what we're doing also when we flick it, we're actually getting out any stuck unhealthy energy that's in there, and it's going to dissipate safely and in a healthy way into the earth's energy field, which is exactly what we want. When we're doing energy work on ourselves or on our others, we can pass that wand over a certain area that we want to clear that energy from. And when you get to the area where it is, oh, you may see a little vibration there. You may dip or flex or tense. And it's like, oh, I found the area. Now let me just kind of hover over that a little bit more. And another thing, when you're working with selenite and a lot of other crystals, don't feel like you need to push your healing energy through it. You really don't. Let it do its own thing. Let the stone do the work. You don't need to shove. You don't need to cram. You don't need to push. Let the stone do the work. You can go over that area and then maybe just put your hand on it and support that with your own healing energy. But I think if you try and push your energy through the selenite, number one, you're changing the natural energy flow that is happening on its own. And you don't really need to do that. You don't need to gild the lily. So the other side of that is you don't need to be a gifted or skilled, trained, certified energy healer to do the work. The stone's doing the work. Let it do its job. It knows what it's doing better than you do. So just let it happen. So as you're going over those energy areas that you're trying to clear and unblock, you may need to go over a spot over and over a couple more times. You can do this for yourself, sitting in a chair, laying on your bed. Like, gosh, I really had a heck of a day. It's just really hard for me to unwind. I'm just jittery. I'm restless. Just lay there in bed and just wand yourself and just kind of let it absorb all that excess energy that's in your system and diffuse it. And then if you feel like you need to, well, gosh, I just got all that energy out of me and now it's all in the room. It's all swirling around. Okay, that's fine. We can clear that out too. Maybe you want to reinforce that with a white sage smudge or a little bit of Palo Santo, some essential oils. You'll get your own technique for using these tools, and you'll find what works better for you on one day. Maybe you need to switch it up on another day. Maybe it's not just restless energy. Maybe you're actually stressed about something specific. So if something specific is troubling you, or you're feeling really tied to something that is holding you back or dragging you down or creating an obstacle, that's where we like to use these knives. And these little selenite knives, they came out several years ago. Selenite's kind of an easier thing to shape when it's in the satin spar. So I'm glad that they started doing these shapes a few years ago, because it helps you focus on your intention, which is one of the things that helps the stones work, is when you have a conscious, guided intention that you're focusing on as you're working with the stone and letting the energy do its thing. So with the knife, you can visualize and focus on the intent of, I am cutting away what is not needed. I am cutting away what is not healthy. I'm doing a little bit of psychic surgery. And people will literally use these to do a quote unquote psychic surgery, to where they're cutting out the negative stuff. Figuratively speaking, this is not a real knife. It will not cut anything other than energy. It's not going to cut your butter. I had somebody actually leave a comment. on one of the selenite knives when we first got them in and posted about them on our Facebook page. It's like, gosh, that knife doesn't look like it would cut anything. Like, well, it's not a real knife. It's a replica of a knife, and it's used to focus your intent. So some energy healers will use this, as I said, to visualize. I'm cutting away all the stress. I'm cutting away. I'll use it sometimes when my arthritis in my wrist starts acting up when cold weather hits or cold rainy weather hits. I'm like, I'm cutting away that painful energy and inflammation. And I visualize it just going away as a... Remember the little dirt cloud that used to follow Pigpen in Charlie Brown? And he just walked around in this little swirling haze of dust. That's what I picture going away. I'm like, oh, I'm just getting rid of all that. It's not gonna cure my arthritis, but it's gonna help me feel a little bit more comfortable. Even if it's all in my head, if I feel better, and I'll take it. So a lot of people like to use these for cord cutting rituals or self-designed rituals. Gosh, I'm having a hard time letting go of a painful incident from my past. I am going to use the selenite knife to cut away that connection that I feel with that. And sometimes it happens and you feel it very intensely and you feel that letting go. And that can have a very profound effect on people that try and use these with those kind of intentions. But you always want to support that. You want to support that with mindfulness. You want to support that with being very specific in what it is you're letting go of. And when you let go of it, let it be gone. And you may need to practice some more intensive self-care techniques and kind of guide yourself through that process. And sometimes you need to rinse and repeat as necessary. Sometimes I know that some people will do this on new moon ceremonies, especially when they're trying to do cord cutting work or cord cutting rituals, getting away from, again, a negative influence or something traumatic that happened, or just trying to break a bad habit. Say you wanted to quit your smoking. Gosh, you might want to use one of the knives to picture, visualize, and set your intention and picture your smoking habit as a thing, as a little entity, maybe as a little Marlboro man holding a little cigarette. And you're just going to, oh, there's a connection between me and the imaginary Marlboro man. I'm going to use my etheric energy selenite knife that doesn't cut anything except etheric energy. And I'm going to sever my connection to that little Marlboro man. And I'm picturing me being set free from my connection to my addiction that I'm visualizing in this specific way. And this is just a tip. This is just an idea, a jumping off place. Of course, you're going to modify that to suit your own needs. So I'm choosing smoking because that's something that I need to get rid of in my life. But it can be anything. It can be a negative point of view. I need to get over this negative viewpoint I have about my self-esteem. And you visualize that self-esteem problem as a thing. You visualize the connection. You visualize yourself cutting that connection using a tool like a knife or something along those lines. So there's more details about that, and if you have any questions or you want to hear more about this, I'd love to get some comments or some feedback from you. You can shoot me an email, or you can hit us on our Facebook or Instagram Messenger. Give me a call here at the store. Catch me at a show. So another thing that we can do with the knives, I know that some of the old school / new school Wiccans and pagans like to use athames as their air element on their altars, but they don't want to use anything made of metal, depending on what their specific tradition is or how they work independently with that tradition. So this is a nice alternative to where you have that air element represented symbolically by the shape of the knife. And then, not for nothing, selenite is going to resonate with that air energy of your different elements represented on your altar or in your sacred space. So that's just another something that you can do with the different types of selenite knives that we have there. This is kind of a neat one. This is our chakra balancing selenite dagger, and it's a little bit thicker, it's a little bit chunkier. I like that the shaft here is a little bit thicker, because one of the things that happened when they first started designing these knives is they'd have a very weak spot between the blade and the handle, and it would break there real easy. Well, that's kind of okay when you're doing a lot of energy work. You expect your selenite to break. It's going to happen, especially if you're moving a lot of energy through it. But you kind of do want to get more than 1 or 2 uses out of it. So, just saying. So some other elements that we have here, we have some different charging plates. This is our good old-fashioned round charging plate. And again, this is the satin spar form of the gypsum selenite. And you can see where it's kind of grown in little columns. And as they did a cross section here, you're going to have different patterns. And sometimes those patterns can be very, very cool. I kind of like seeing the different patterns that are going to show up in that. And this has been polished all the way around, so it's not going to shred quite as easily as the raw satin spar will. And we kind of call that shredding here at the store. So this one's not going to shred, but it will eventually. It'll chip a little bit. It's soft. Selenite is a very soft stone. It's not going to do well in long-lasting applications, especially where it's getting handled a lot, because it has a hardness, I think, of 4.5. So expect it to take a little bit of a beating. So the round shape is nice. This is the same thing, just in a square. And again, you can see some of the pattern, and it is nice and translucent. You can see some light coming through it. Some other shapes that we have in chargers, and these are little charging bars. So we have some, and they can now be engraved with different little designs. This is our, it's the flower of life superimposed on the moon with the tree of life. So I kind of like that because it ties together several different things that I work with. And of course, you know, the chakra balancing, that's always a nice one. These we have available online for $9.99. You might not get that price in the store. Everything you see in our stuff on the table is going to be an online product. You may or may not be able to get it in the retail store at Nature's Treasures, and the pricing may be different, so be conscious of that. Then we have some little thumb stones, and again, it's going to get shredded, especially if you're worrying away and rubbing away your little excess energy and nervousness and stuff. And these are not expensive at all. That's only $6 for that little guy. The little stars are cute. He's $5.99. I like this little star bowl. The bowls and the dishes are one of our most popular items in the selenite collection. This one's like really smoothly polished. But I like to use these for emptying out my pocket full of rocks when I get home from work at night. And I just drop everything right there in my little selenite dish. Selenite will clear any other stone almost instantly. You don't need to wait overnight. You don't need to let it go through a full lunar cycle or anything like that. Seriously, a couple of minutes is all it takes. Sometimes just a few seconds. And you can pick those stones up again and know, oh wow, that's fresh as a daisy. I like that a lot. So the bowls are really, really popular. This is an orange selenite, which is natural. That just means there's a little iron oxide in there. And that's where it gets that color from. And some people really like that. And you can see that nice luminous texture of the fiber optics that are in there. And again, that pattern from where it was cut on that in a big bar like this. And this little guy is $14.99. Then we have our little tea light holders. You can put a votive in there, but you may need to squish it down kind of tight. But these are cool because when you get a candle in there and it glows, that has a very nice little moonlight effect, but it's also going to have the same effect on a smaller level as one of the selenite tower lamps. So that energy from the light and from the heat of the little candle itself going through the selenite is what's going to activate and energize more energy being pulled in. And so it's sort of like flipping on a fan, and it just sucks in more energy and then pushes out that cleared reset energy. So I really like using the little candle holders, and it's a little bit more romantic. So I like those. Pyramid shape, that's a nice little way because you're going to get that concentration of energy. So if you want to use a selenite pyramid under something that you're trying to keep a good, strong, consistent charge on. Say you had a phone hanging on a wall and you're getting a lot of bad news. Hey, I'm going to put my little pyramid under there. They're telling me I have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to try and wrap this up. Got to mention the Selenite Angel. We got a little one, $7.99. We also have some larger ones available on the website. The little hearts, the little eggs. Let's see. What else did I want to mention about using this? Oh, I know what. You know, one of the ways I got even turned on to selenite was I got the Selenite Window to keep my tarot decks clear in between clients on busy reading days. And you can just set your tarot deck there, and in between clients, even in just a few seconds, it is clear and fresh as a daisy, and you don't have to worry about carrying your previous client's energy into the next reading, because that does happen sometimes. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up for today. I'm Tammy. If you have any questions or you want to see more products like this, please drop us a line and let us know. And you have a very blessed and magical day.